What's your bone-chilling experience with a Ouija board? I'm here, guys, and thank you for popping back to the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed today's shorter video, as we have a few longer but spooky stories to share with y'all. Story 1. One day, my partner got the idea to buy a Ouija board and use it with a few friends. I wouldn't say we were complete skeptics, but I don't think any of us were really expecting anything wild to happen. We went on the internet and looked up how to safely use one and plan out what kind of questions we should ask. We didn't really want to use it at our house, so we gathered up a couple friends and I drove to a skate park a few towns over. We started to head up the hiking trail and find a good spot to lay the board down. We began going through the motions of asking if there was a spirit who would like to communicate, etc., etc. The planchette moved with ease. It's a really strange, powerful feeling when it glides across the board. The planchette it came with was a thick hunk of plastic, and there was quite a bit of friction when trying to intentionally move it on the board. We were a bit stunned that the damn thing was working. We asked the spirit if it was a good spirit. Of course, the planchette moved over to no. We then asked if it wanted to harm us. Planchette moved over to yes. My partner asked how it would go about doing this. The board began to spell out E-N-G-I-N-E. We see a group of hikers coming up in our general direction and we carelessly put the board away without properly saying goodbye. We hike back down to another secluded area and decide to try again. This time we come into contact with a spirit who claims to be a 6-year-old boy who died sometime in the 1800s. Seemed nice at first, until he told our friend he wanted him to die so he would have someone to play with. We decided to ask the board questions only we would know the answers to. Each person asking the question took their hands off the planchette to be certain. The board got every damn question correct, and that's when I started to feel a bit uneasy. I honestly couldn't believe it. The board then proceeded to spell out my name. I wasn't really sure why. Soon after, it began to rain, so we told the board that we had to go, and asked it to help us bring the planchette down to goodbye. It complied. We all began walking back to my car when I noticed this woman sitting in an SUV next to mine watching us. Her gaze never really left and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We all get in my car and I go to start it and the engine doesn't turn over. It was almost as if the battery was dead, but my accessories still worked. I began to poop bricks. I hadn't had my car for very long and it never gave me trouble. Seemed like it was way too big of a coincidence. I look over at that woman and put my window down and ask her if she's jumper cables. She reaches behind her and pulls them out as if she's had them ready. We get out of my car and hook them up, when my partner's friend phone rings from a number he doesn't recognize. He picked it up and it was someone just asking if we were okay. He chalked it up to the fact that a drug dealer previously had the number, so he got a lot of unknown calls. Weird. We started chatting with this woman and thank her for letting us use the jumper cables. Turns out she's the same name as me, which the board had previously spelled out. Perhaps a warning? She tells us that she works as an ultrasound technician at a local hospital and has cancer in young children. We asked her what she was doing in the parking lot, to which she explained she was waiting for her dealer. Medical marijuana is legal in my state, so I was a bit perplexed but didn't think anything of it. I was just grateful she was helping us. I go to try and start the car and it still doesn't work. It just kind of rolls for a few feet in the parking lot before shutting off. At this point it's getting dark and I begin to come to terms with the fact that I'll have to call a tow truck. Our friend ended up getting picked up and my partner stayed with me as we waited for the tow truck to arrive. We told the woman she could leave since she was still weirdly waiting with us. She offered for us to sit in her car while we waited because it was raining again. I asked her if she could pop the trunk so I could sit on the ledge, but she told me the trunk didn't open. So stupidly, I got in her car with my partner. The weird woman made a joke about disabling her child's safety locks in the back, so I won't think she's trying to keep us here. That rubbed me the wrong way. She started telling me that maybe I should just leave my car there and offered to give us a ride home. I politely declined. Then she told me that she's a friend whose husband works for VW, and he could surely fix my car for a good price. She called up her friend, and because we were in the car, it was quiet enough that my partner and I could faintly hear the other line. She explains the car problem and asks how much it would be to fix it. We hear on the other line the person asks if I'm a boy or girl. The woman says girl, and the man on the line simply said, "Good." Nope. We get out of the car and tell her the tow truck should be there soon and thanks for her help. We gave her the Ouija board and told her she could keep it because we didn't want it anymore. I still wonder what she did with it. She kept trying to get me to give her my phone number and kept saying she would come with me to get my car fixed from her friend. Eventually she was pissed off. We ended up getting back home late. Told the AAA guy how we were playing around with the Ouija board and met the weird lady afterwards. He said he wouldn't have picked us up if he had known that. The next day my partner opened his text that he had sent out while we were waiting for the tow. In a conversation with his mother, the text box had said, "Yes, Satan, yes," written out. The message wasn't sent, but he sure as hell didn't write that. The next day I called the hospital to see if that woman even worked there, like she'd claimed. Nope. They transferred me to 2 different floors, and there was no ultrasound technician working there with my name. I still don't know how to explain what happened that night, and I'm sure as hell never using a Ouija board again. Also, the dealer the woman claimed to be waiting for never even showed up. So what she was doing that night and what her intentions were, I'll never know. Let this story be a lesson to anyone who thinks it's fun to mess around with a Ouija board. Even if 99 out of 100 times nothing happens, you have to be concerned about the one time something does go down. This feels like one of those paranormal stories where you kind of start to get a little mad because it's easily something OP could have avoided. Like running into a ghost on your way home from work. Happens to the best of us. But deliberately using something that's known to haunt people, that's kind of on you. Story 2. I used to use one all the time, until one time I used it in my garage with my friend and the spirit attached itself to the board. So whenever I used to Ouija, she would come back but be stronger. She would be moving the planchette faster and with more force. She kept coming back, and eventually my friend and I agreed that if we got her again, we would destroy the board. And when we got her again, we cut it up into 7 pieces and buried it. But after that, many weird things started happening in my house, which are some very long stories. She never left. I can still feel her presence, but I've found that as long as I don't give her attention, she won't bother me or do anything. She resides in my attic. I can still feel her watching me years later. Well, funnily enough, she never bothered me. She always messed with my sister. I've always had trouble believing all the stories she has told me, but I'll tell you guys a few of them. One night when my mom had left on a business trip, I fell asleep watching Forrest Gump on the TV in my room. Then I was sleepwalking into my sister's room. I never sleepwalk, and I put my cup down on her dresser and said, "Let's go." Since my sister knew I was asleep, she decided to entertain me. She said, "Where are we going?" "Follow me." "Where are we going?" "The mirror in my room," I said. "But there's no mirror in my room." "Where does that lead to?" said my sister. "Hell." And after that, my sister said I started speaking in tongues. So then my sister thought it was a good idea to follow me to my room. And apparently I'd paused the movie on the part where his mom dies at the end. And I pointed to the screen and started laughing. The only thing I remember from that night was waking up to my sister saying the Hail Mary prayer. I was really scared for some reason. So I ran outside away from her and I ran to my garage, which is where I originally talked to the spirit with the Ouija board. She said, "Why are you going to the garage? What's wrong with you?" And I said, "You're hurting me. It's safe here." And honestly, I don't know why I even said that. I just remember being drawn there, like it was a sanctuary. I never opened that garage door because I finally came to and was feeling pretty confused as to what was going on. Then my sister took me to a nearby church parking lot and told me everything that happened. I believed her at the time because she was so terrified and knew something evil was afoot. Many things happened after that, like music blaring from my computer that was turned off in the middle of the night. And when my sister yelled for it to stop, it got louder and louder and louder until it suddenly stopped, and right above her in the attic, she heard extremely loud footsteps going from one end of the attic to the other very fast. And once it got to the other end, it slammed the door to the attic. I can only assume it was on the ground floor at that time and was watching us once again. She said that it sounded like it wasn't running on just 2 feet either. The sound it made seemed like it was on all 4s. Somehow I never heard any of this and was sound asleep in my room that was right next to where all this happened. Look, I know OP was a kid, so to me it should have been on the parents to just throw the board away and try to get the kids some help if they really do need it. Because, like, come on, your kid's doing all this weird crap and you still don't think to get them some help? What would it have taken for the parents to do something? OP literally kept going to the garage for no reason, then they thought, "Oh, this is fine." Story 3. When I was in high school, I worked for the city in one of the public libraries. There were several of us high school students there. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, the library was open later, so we had a lunch those nights. One of those nights, my friend brought her Ouija board to work. There were 4 of us teens. 3 of us participated. Steven chickened out, but he stayed to watch. Fairly quickly, we were able to establish a connection with the spirit. She told us her name. We asked multiple questions about whether she was a demon or ghost. She told us she had died in a car wreck. She gave us some details about her life, like playing basketball in high school, how she was killed, etc. We kind of played it off. When our lunch was over, one of the ladies who worked the circulation desk asked us about our lunch. I told her that we were playing with the Ouija and recounted the spirit that we were talking about. I mentioned the name. I don't remember the name now. This was nearly 30 years ago. And Abby, the coworker, went white. She started to shake and sweat. Turns out she grew up with the spirit and went to high school with her. She was supposed to be in the car the night the spirit was killed. There were 4 girls in the car. 3 were decapitated. The other was ejected from the car and died on the side of the road. Working in the library, I decided to do some research on microfiche. Found the newspaper article about the accident. Cemented my belief that we had made a connection. Could my coworkers have been messing with me? Yes. I don't believe it though, due to Abby's reaction. It seemed genuine to me. Haven't touched a Ouija since. I feel bad for Abby, who probably thought it was gonna be a fun and harmless thing to do, only to believe that you're talking to one of your close friends who passed in a tragic accident. I hope Abby is doing better and this wasn't some sick prank OP's coworkers were playing on them. Story 4. As teenagers, we did this a lot in our friendship group. We didn't use a board, but a cup or glass and letters on paper spread around the table, as well as yes and no. The board game version isn't super common here, in Australia. We would get varied spirits and responses each time of different strength on moving the glass around, except for my one friend who had the same spirit come each time she played. We talked to this spirit many times. One day there's about 8 of us hanging out at this girl's house and we decided to play. She called her spirit and came right away and was really strong. The glass was zipping all around really quickly and forcefully. One friend of a friend who was there didn't believe in any of this and just joked that we were all pushing the glass around. So we asked the spirit if it could move the glass if we all held hands in a circle instead of touching the glass. It said yes. So we all took our hands off the glass and held hands in a circle. I was watching really closely as we all joined hands. And the second that the last set of hands touched, the glass flew across the table, hit the well, and fell into the floor. There was no way that anyone could have pushed it at all, as all of our hands were visible. There was clear space under the table and no one was under there. And the glass wasn't magnetic or anything. We all screamed and broke our hands and ran out of the room. To this day, 20 plus years later, I still can't explain how that was able to happen, bearing some supernatural or psychokinetic explanation.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.